There is one frame in BTS's Normal music video that lasts less than 5 seconds. No dialogue, no lyrics playing over it that scream for your attention. Just Jimin, standing completely still in a black suit, one hand resting on the neck of a tall, elegant dog with golden fur and a face shaped almost like a wolf. And according to fans, critics, and entertainment outlets who have picked this scene apart frame by frame, that 5-second moment says more about who Jimin actually is than every single interview he has ever given combined. Stick with me for the next few minutes, because by the end of this video, you are going to look at Jimin completely differently, and you are never going to watch the ending of Normal the same way again. Before we get into the dog, and trust me, we are getting into the dog, you need the full picture. Because this scene does not exist in isolation. It is the final punctuation mark on one of the most talked about music videos BTS has released in years, and understanding what comes before it is the only way to understand why it hits as hard as it does. So let's rewind. Normal dropped on July 19th, 2026 as the 5th music video from BTS's massive comeback album ARIRANG. Directed by Tanu Muiño, the same visionary filmmaker known for pushing pop stars into surreal, emotionally loaded worlds. The video is set almost entirely inside a sprawling old mansion, the kind of place that looks like it is holding decades of secrets behind every closed door. And for the first several minutes, that mansion is chaos. Champagne glasses everywhere. A wild party in full swing. The members throwing cake, laughing, dancing, losing themselves in the kind of glamorous excess that the public assumes is just normal for a global superstar. That is the whole point of the title, by the way. The video is asking a question before it ever answers one. What does normal even mean when your entire life is a performance? Then the video shifts. The party ends. The lights come down. And what we get next is arguably the most important stretch of the entire project. The morning after. Suddenly we are not watching a celebration anymore, we are watching exhaustion. We are watching the come down. Jungkook stands under a shower, refusing to look at his own reflection for as long as he can. Like there is something about facing himself that feels too heavy. Jimin lies motionless on a bed, still dressed in last night's party clothes, the camera catching him from the foot of the bed almost like it is trying not to disturb him, like even his rest is not fully his own. If that visual feels familiar to longtime fans, it is because it deliberately echoes an old, iconic BTS video called Run, where Jimin appeared in a hospital bed in one of the most heartbreaking sequences the group has ever filmed. Muiño is not doing that by accident. He is telling you, visually, that this exhaustion is not new. It has always been part of the story, even when the cameras were selling you the highlight reel instead. And that emotional weight keeps building. There is a moment where V is shown with a minor injury during the party, barely noticeable in the chaos of the moment, and by morning, that same injury looks far worse, bruised, swollen, impossible to ignore. It is such a small detail, but it says something enormous. In the moment, adrenaline hides the damage. It is only later, in the quiet, that you actually feel what happened to you. If you have ever pushed through something painful because you were too busy, too surrounded by noise to stop and process it, and then felt it hit you all at once things finally went quiet, you already understand exactly what this video is trying to say. So by the time we reach the final act of Normal, we have been through a full emotional arc euphoria. Excess, the crash, the exposure, and then, finally, 7 men standing side by side in matching black suits, styled, composed, camera ready. On the surface, it looks like the video is ending exactly where every celebrity narrative is supposed to end. Polished, perfect, back in control. Except this time, they are not alone. Each member is paired with a dog. And this is where things get genuinely interesting, because this was clearly not a random styling choice. Let's go member by member, because the pattern here is too specific to ignore. RM stands with a Doberman, a breed widely associated with intelligence, loyalty, and quiet strength, which tracks for the group's leader, the one who has spent over a decade being the calm, thoughtful voice holding everything together in interviews and on stage. Jean is paired with a Greyhound, a breed known for grace and an almost effortless calm confidence, which honestly fits the member fans have long described as carrying himself with a kind of easy, self-assured charm even in the most chaotic moments. Suga stands with a French bulldog, a breed associated with gentleness and quiet comfort. An interesting contrast for a member whose stage persona is intense and razor-sharp, but whose offstage presence fans often describe as surprisingly soft and low-key. J-Hope is with an Irish setter, a breed bursting with energy, warmth, and charisma, which barely needs explaining if you have ever watched J-Hope command a stage for even 10 seconds. Taeyong, or V, stands with a poodle, a breed known for being expressive, intelligent, and deeply affectionate, matching the member who has built an entire public persona around emotional openness and artistic sensitivity. Jungkook is paired with a Dalmatian, a breed that is playful, competitive, and full of restless energy, which lines up perfectly with the group's famously competitive, sports-obsessed Magne. And then there's Jimin, standing there in that same black suit, one hand resting gently on the neck of a Borzoi, sometimes called a Russian wolfhound. A breed that looks almost regal. Tall, slender, elegant in a way that feels less like a dog and more like a piece of moving sculpture. And according to entertainment outlets and fan analysts who broke down the symbolism scene by scene, the Borzoi represents sensitivity and quiet elegance. Now stop for a second, because I need to be completely transparent with you here, since accuracy matters more to me than a cheap headline. Big Hit Music has not released an official statement confirming that every single dog breed was handpicked to represent a specific personality trait for each member. This interpretation comes from careful analysis by K-pop entertainment writers and fans who noticed the pattern and connected the dots. But here's the thing, when you actually sit with it, when you look at 7 completely different dog breeds, each one lining up almost eerily well with the public personality of the member standing next to it, it stops feeling like coincidence. Directors like Tanu Muiño do not throw random animals into a 5-second closing shot of a major comeback music video. Every single visual choice in this project, from the hospital bed callback to the injury that worsens overnight, was deliberate. So whether or not Big Hit ever confirms it in an official statement, the pattern speaks for itself. And Jimin's pattern is the Borzoi. Sensitivity, quiet elegance, not loud, not aggressive, composed, but soft underneath. Now here's why that lands so hard, and why I genuinely believe this 5-second scene tells you more about Jimin than a decade of press junkets. Think about how Jimin is usually presented to the public. On stage, he is often described using words like intense, fierce, powerful, a performer who can command an arena with a single expression. In interviews, he is polite, careful, often deflecting personal questions with humor or humility. He rarely lets the mask slip in a formal setting, because that is what years of training and public scrutiny teach you to do. Interviews are performances too, just quieter ones. You get the version of Jimin that has been filtered through publicists, translators, time constraints, and the simple fact that a 15-minute press junket is not exactly the environment where anyone reveals their most authentic self. But a dog does not care about any of that. A dog is not doing media training. A dog cannot perform for the cameras the way a human being learns to. So when the styling and direction team chose to pair Jimin, specifically Jimin, with an animal whose entire symbolic meaning is sensitivity and quiet elegance, rather than something aggressive or flashy, it is functioning almost like a visual character study. It is the video's way of saying, underneath the powerful performer, underneath the polished press conference answers, there is someone gentle, someone whose emotional register runs deep rather than loud. And if that sounds like a reach, let's talk about why it actually is not, because Jimin's real-life history backs this up in a way that almost feels too perfect to be a coincidence. If you have followed BTS for any length of time, you already know that several of the members have had real dogs of their own. Suga's toy poodle Holly still lives with his parents in Daegu. J-Hope's Shih Tzu Mickey is now a senior dog, living a quieter life with family. RM's American Eskimo, affectionately called Rapmon after his old stage name, passed away in 2023, something RM shared with fans himself in an emotional Weverse broadcast. And Taeyong's dog Yeontan, the Pomeranian, who became so beloved by ARMY that fans nicknamed him the unofficial 8th member of BTS, passed away in December 2024 after a long battle with a congenital heart condition, a loss Taeyong announced personally on Instagram. Jungkook's dog, a Doberman named Bam, has literally crossed 100 million views on TikTok under his own hashtag, and remains one of the most followed pets in all of K-pop. Jimin, notably, does not currently have a dog of his own, and the reason why is honestly one of the most quietly devastating details in this entire story. Growing up in Busan, Jimin had a beloved dog named Dosun, a mixed breed who was his constant companion and source of comfort throughout his early life, long before debut, long before any of his fame existed. When Dosun passed away, it hit Jimin hard enough that, according to what he has shared in interviews and broadcasts over the years, he has never adopted another dog since. He has explained it plainly. He loved her so much that he does not feel ready to give that same kind of heart to another pet yet. Think about that for a second. This is a man who performs in front of 80,000 people without flinching, who commands stadiums, who has been in the industry long enough to have every reason to build up walls. And yet there is still a piece of him that has stayed soft enough, sensitive enough, that he has spent years unwilling to open that specific door again. That is not a detail a stylist invented for a photo shoot. That is real. That happened in interviews, on broadcasts, in Jimin's own words, years before Normal was ever filmed. Now put that next to the Borzoi. Back in August 2024, on the Disney Plus travel series Are You Sure?, featuring Jungkook, Jimin, and Taehyung, there is a moment where Jimin openly jokes about having practically raised Yeontan himself, even though Taehyung immediately, playfully corrects him and says it was really only about a week. Fans online had an entire moment over this exchange, joking that Jimin and Taehyung were basically Tanny's parents. Looking back at that clip now, knowing Yeontan is no longer with us, it plays even softer than it did at the time. But at the moment it aired, it sounds like nothing more than a throwaway joke on the surface. But sit with it for a second. Jimin, who does not own a pet of his own, is a member who talks about a dog with that kind of warmth and ownership in his voice, unprompted, in a casual conversation that was never designed to be some deep emotional reveal. That is not a scripted moment for a music video. That is Jimin, off guard, genuinely lighting up over an animal. That is the quiet elegance the Borzoi is supposedly meant to represent, showing up in real life, months and months before this MV was ever filmed. And here is a detail that makes the whole ending scene even more fascinating once you notice it. None of the dogs standing next to the members in Normal are actually their real-life pets. Jungkook's real dog, a Doberman named Bam who has racked up over 100 million views under his own hashtag on TikTok, is not the dog next to him in the video. Instead, Jungkook is paired with a Dalmatian. Interestingly, RM stands beside a Doberman in this scene, the exact breed that belongs to Jungkook in real life, even though RM's own dog growing up was an American Eskimo. Taehyung's beloved Pomeranian, Yeontan, was one of the most recognizable pets in the entire fandom before his passing in December 2024, and yet the dog beside Taehyung in this scene is a poodle, an entirely different breed. Whether that was simply a practical styling choice, or a quiet, deliberate decision not to recreate a loss that was still relatively recent at the time of filming, is not something Big Hit has addressed publicly. But it is worth sitting with for a moment either way. But look at what that choice actually does. It strips away the obvious, easy narrative. If the video had just used everyone's real pets, the message would have been simple and a little on the nose. Here is the member, here is their dog, the end. Instead, by deliberately choosing new dogs and matching them to personality traits rather than ownership, the video forces you to actually think about what each breed represents, rather than just recognizing a pet you already know from Weverse and variety shows. It becomes less about this is Jimin's dog and more about this dog is Jimin, which is a completely different, much more intentional kind of storytelling. That distinction matters because it means the Borzoi was not selected out of convenience. It was selected because, out of every breed available, it was the one the creative team decided best capture something essential about how Jimin is meant to be read in that final moment of the video. And that is genuinely the argument at the center of this whole video. Interviews are constructed. Every question is anticipated. Every answer is at least somewhat rehearsed. And even the most candid celebrity sit-down still exists inside a machine designed to protect an image. But small, almost accidental moments, a joke about raising a friend's dog for a week, the specific animal a stylist and director choose to place beside you in a 5-second closing shot, those moments slip past the filter. They are not designed to tell you who someone is. They just do, almost by accident. And when you line those unscripted moments up against the deliberate symbolism of Normal, you get a version of Jimin that feels more honest than almost anything he has said directly into a microphone. There is also something worth sitting with in the broader structure of the normal video that makes this ending scene hit even harder. Remember, this is a music video literally about the gap between public image and private reality. The whole first half is a version of normal that the public projects onto celebrities. Non-stop parties, glamorous excess, 7 guys who apparently spend every night surrounded by luxury and chaos because, hey, that's just what famous rich people do, right? And then the video spends its second half systematically dismantling that assumption, showing you the exhaustion, the crash, the physical toll nobody sees on the highlight reel. So by the time you reach that final scene, the formal portrait with the dogs, you are watching the video's actual answer to its own question. This is what normal really looks like when the party ends and the noise dies down. Not chaos, not performance, just 7 people, quietly, standing next to something that makes them feel like themselves. And for Jimin, that something is symbolized by an animal whose entire visual identity is grace without aggression, elegance without noise. If you have ever watched Jimin perform live, and then watched him in a slow, quiet Weverse broadcast talking softly to fans after a show, hands sometimes shaking from exhaustion, voice cracking with emotion he is clearly trying to hold together, you already know this contrast is not new. It has always been there. The normal ending scene just finally gave it a visual. And if you think this is just a fun theory with no real-world backing, look at how Jimin has actually behaved on stage, in real time, in front of tens of thousands of people, throughout this entire era. During the European leg of BTS's world tour, there was a moment in Brussels where Jimin noticed a fan was in distress in the crowd, and instead of continuing the show, he paused everything until the situation was handled. In London, ahead of 2 record-breaking nights at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, he had predicted beforehand that the city would end up being the most memorable stop of the entire tour, and by the time he delivered an emotional farewell speech to the crowd after the final show, it was clear that prediction was not just a promotional soundbite, it was something he genuinely felt. Back on an earlier leg of the tour in Tampa, a clip went viral of Jimin putting his arm around a security guard mid-show. A small, human gesture that had nothing to do with choreography or performance, and everything to do with just noticing another person in the room. None of these moments were scripted. None of them were designed to prove a point about his personality. They just happened, the way real character tends to show up when nobody is specifically asking you to display it. And every single one of them lines up with the exact same quality the Borzoi is supposed to represent. Awareness, sensitivity, a kind of quiet attentiveness that has nothing to do with how loudly you can command a stage. Now, let's talk about why this detail matters so much in the bigger picture of how Jimin is understood by casual viewers versus longtime fans. If you are new to BTS, or if you have only ever seen clips of Jimin performing, dancing with that intensity that made Rolling Stone call him the best dancer in the group, it would be incredibly easy to assume his entire identity is built around that fierce, commanding stage presence. And that is not wrong, that side of him is completely real. But it is only half the story. The other half is a person who, according to people who have spent years around him, tends to run quiet, sensitive, and deeply attuned to the people around him. Someone who reportedly checked in on a security guard during a concert instead of just walking past. An interaction so genuine it went viral entirely on its own. Someone who, according to bandmates, threw himself into learning about a friend's pet dog well enough to joke, with real affection, about having raised him. A director does not know all of that backstory when they are casting a symbolic dog for a 5-second shot. But somehow, whether through instinct, styling notes, or sheer coincidence, the choice landed exactly on the animal that matches the private version of Jimin that fans who have followed him closely already recognized. That is what makes the scene so satisfying to dissect. It is not the video telling you something new about Jimin. It is the video accidentally confirming something a lot of people already suspected, just through the language of animals and styling instead of words. So here is the actual answer to the question this whole video has been building toward. Why does a 5-second shot of Jimin standing next to a dog explain him better than an interview ever could? Because an interview is Jimin performing the answer he has decided is safe to give you. This scene is Jimin, styled and directed, sure, but landing on a symbol that lines up almost perfectly with the parts of himself he rarely puts into words directly. quiet elegance, sensitivity underneath the intensity, a softness that only shows up when the performance stops and the cameras catch something a little closer to real. If this kind of deep dive is exactly the type of content you come here for, hit that subscribe button right now, because this channel breaks down moments like this from BTS's entire discography, every comeback, every music video, every hidden detail that the algorithm buries, but that actually matters if you want to understand these artists on a level deeper than the surface. And if you have your own theory about why Jimin specifically got paired with the Borzoi, or if you noticed something in this video I did not cover, drop it in the comments below, because some of the best breakdowns on this channel started as a comment someone left on a video, just like this one. Before you go, let's zoom out one more time, because there is a reason this particular scene has continued to circulate on social media weeks after the video first dropped. Fan accounts have been resharing clips of BTS with dogs in the normal MV, specifically, not the party scenes, not the choreography, this quiet, almost throwaway ending moment. That tells you something about what actually resonates with people in 2026. We are drowning in polished celebrity content, perfectly lit interviews, rehearsed talk show appearances, carefully managed social media posts. What people are actually starving for is the accidental stuff. The unscripted joke about raising a friend's dog for a week. The 5-second shot where a stylist choice ends up saying more than a publicist ever intended it to. Those are the moments that spread, because they feel true in a way that manufactured content simply cannot replicate. And that is exactly why the scene deserves way more attention than it has gotten. It is easy to scroll past 5 seconds of a music video's ending credit sequence. It is much harder to actually sit with what that 5 seconds is quietly telling you, especially when you line it up against everything else we know about who Jimin actually is when the cameras are not chasing a headline. So the next time you watch Normal, do not skip past that ending. Watch Jimin's hand resting on that Borzoi's neck. Watch how still he stands, how composed, how quiet, especially compared to the chaos of everything that came before it in the video. And ask yourself honestly, does that look like a performance to you? Or does it look like, for just 5 seconds, the camera finally caught the version of Jimin that exists when nobody is asking him to perform at all? That is the story this video has been trying to tell you the entire time, and it took a dog to actually say it out loud. Think about how rare that actually is in 2026. We live in an era where almost every piece of celebrity content is optimized, tested, and approved before it ever reaches you. Statements get run through PR teams. Interview questions get vetted in advance. Even the most raw, behind-the-scenes footage has usually been selected from hours of material specifically because it presents someone the right way. Against that backdrop, a 5-second shot from the ending of a music video, built around a symbolic dog breed that nobody at Big Hit has ever gone out of their way to formally explain, becomes almost accidentally more honest than the content that was actually designed to reveal something. Nobody planned for the scene to become the emotional centerpiece of the entire video's online conversation. It just happened. The same way Jimin's comment about raising Yeontan for a week just happened. The same way that moment with the security guard in Tampa just happened. And maybe that is the real lesson buried inside all of this. The moments that end up telling us the most about the people we admire are almost never the ones built specifically to tell us something. They are the small, unscripted, almost forgettable seconds that slip through anyway. So if you came into this video already loving Jimin, hopefully this gave you a new lens to appreciate a detail you might have scrolled straight past. And if you came into this video not knowing much about him at all, hopefully you are starting to understand why millions of people around the world connect with him the way they do. It was never really about the loud, powerful stage moments alone. It was always about what happens underneath them, in the quiet seconds most people never bother to look for. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like this video, subscribe if you have not already, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next deep dive into BTS's discography, tour moments, and hidden details most channels do not take the time to actually unpack. And let me know in the comments, which BTS member's dog pairing do you think fits them best? And did Jimin's Borzoi surprise you? Or did it just confirm what you already knew? Drop your theory below, because the next video on this channel might just be built around your comment. I will see you in the next one.